winning a big major early on in the year means that you're more in the running for those endgame points. It means that you're qualifying for that next playoff season with just a nominal amount of performances alongside that. This is a big match for these two. CHAKKI, you know, we've been talking about this for months up to this point. Like, wow, how crazy it would be if you actually won back-to-back championships at the same event.
What do you have to say about it?
He treats it like it's not a big deal. And he tries to, I think, kind of ignore the fact that that's a reality, because I think it makes him a bit nervous when he's thinking about how big of a feat that would actually be. And for Terrence, I can guarantee you the same sort of thought is going through his head. Like, there's only one more spot that I can move up. And now I have to face the guy who stopped me from doing it last year.
There's a lot riding on this for both of these guys. CHAKKI's chance at a repeat championship would be absolutely huge if he could accomplish that. And then for Terrence, just the ability to usurp the champion, his defeater from last year, and crown himself supreme in the round of 16 would be so, so big.
Yeah, and in this matchup too, it's the Paladin mirror match, which has become very Murloc focused since the Journey to Ungoro. And Terrence has quite the hand. I mean, this is the dream start if you're fighting the mirror match.
Yes, it is.
He's got Murloc Tidecaller, he's got the Rock Pool Hunter to buff it up, he's got Murloc War Leader, and he's got Hungry Crab to fight off in case CHAKKI's ever able to get something stuck to the board. But in this matchup, the attacker's initiative means so much. Since both players are trying to accomplish the same goal, get a Murloc on board and then buff it, whoever's able to buff it first is the one who typically takes a large advantage in the game. And so for Terrence, being able to go first is way offsetting the advantage that CHAKKI's getting of another card and the coin.
Well, that attacker's advantage is certainly coming into play here. The Rock Pool Hunter going to put this Tidecaller out of range of the Hydrologist, meaning that Terrence has taken the board and he's kept it for yet another turn.
Yeah, and CHAKKI now, he's drawn 2 Rock Pool Hunters. He's got Steward Darkshire, he's got Redemption, but his big recovery turn is really seated in Finja at the moment. He's going to have to fight as much as he can for the board, and that's going to fail. We can see Terrence's hand, but if he can manage to pick up any tool to actually fight this board at all, that is his one hope, because now Terrence has drawn Blessing of Kings. He has his own Finja. He's still got the Hungry Crab. This game could be over right away.
Nathan, this curve from Terrence is just too good. And yes, Finja would be huge for CHAKKI, but Terrence is going to get there one turn sooner.
And CHAKKI had to coin out that Rock Pool, I'm sorry, the Hydrologist on turn 1 just to try to get something on board to stop the potential incoming damage. Now Cold Light Seer picked up.
Oh my goodness.
And Terrence, he doesn't even have to trade in this spot. He can very easily just eat that Rock Pool Hunter right away. He's going to see its redemption, and that is way too much.
Game over.
For CHAKKI.
Oh man. That was about a 45-second game number 1, but Terrence's hand was just perfect there.
I mean, that is the god draw if you're in Terrence's spot. There is not a single way, I think, that CHAKKI could have won this game without an exactly similar styled hand. But that being said, that's one of the reasons why Terrence has included Hungry Crab in this deck. If you're fighting that Paladin mirror match, oftentimes the attacker's advantage is what wins the game. When he's going second and his opponent has those draws, he has a tech card that can win that situation.
That was just an absolute blowout. Now, Terrence is going forward with that Paladin list once again. CHAKKI going to have to find a counter among his lineup, which is very similar to Amnesiac's. You guys were noting 120 cards similar exactly.
Yeah, I was still fairly certain there was 43 cards in CHAKKI's Paladin deck with all the different elements that he's brought to it. But that's part of the reason they brought Priest to this tournament as well, is they wanted to have game not only against this particular Paladin build, but against some of the builds that rely on those synergies just in general. You know, Priest is great at spot removal. One of the things it struggles with is taking advantage of a giant board state once it actually grabs it. You know, it picks up value, it picks up value, it picks up value, but if you can't stop your opponent's cards from synergizing, a lot of times that value is fairly nominal, but that's what Priest is good at, is stopping those kinds of pushes. So his major goal is just to get any presence on board, take advantage of the fact that it's there, and then use cards like Draconid Operative to start delivering that massive card advantage. So at the end of the game, he's the one with the final threats.
And CHAKKI's Priest deck, aptly titled Bob, I think a nod to Bob Lolnostum Matson, one of CHAKKI's good friends and practice partners, and definitely someone who had a big hand in developing this lineup with him.
Yeah, I remember last year when we met Nostum, it was at the Winter Championships. He had a great performance there, and he ended up sneaking into the top 8, and he took second place overall at the event. And I was really impressed with his play. You know, he beat me and kept me from top 8 in that event as well, and he's just a fantastic player, and since then he's continued to grow. But Terrence has been no slouch either. This guy's continued to grind on the circuit. He's continued to put up strong performances in ladders and in Open Cups, and now that he's here competing at another major, it's really not a surprise to see him at this point.
Yeah, Terrence's career hasn't been quite as flashy, I would say, as CHAKKI. CHAKKI's had more big results when it comes down to it, but Terrence, he's developing his own stream. He competed in the rat race this season, so he's staying competitive, but he hasn't been, you know, a standout performer in HCT circuit or in anything super big since DreamHack Austin last year, but definitely no slouch. He is a great competitor.
Yeah, this early game is getting a little bit rough for CHAKKI as well. The Murloc Tidecaller happens to be one of the stronger functioning cards against Priest. It's a threat that if they don't check it early on, it starts to grow to a pretty outstanding number. Since Priest's hero power doesn't actually impact the board at all unless you already have something there, it oftentimes becomes difficult for CHAKKI to really fend off this card before it gets some significant value. He has Potion of Madness in hand, so he will often be able to take care of this, but not before it delivers quite a punch. In this case, it's probably killing that Northshire Cleric.
Ooh, and the Rockpool Hunter pickup off the top, exactly what Terrence wanted to see. Didn't have the mana for the Cold Light Seer, so the Rockpool is going to be able to keep the Tidecaller alive and get that Cleric off the board.
Yeah, here's where the problems can start to begin for Terrence, though. His Potion of Madness is going to completely wipe out this early board position. CHAKKI was able to draw an extra card, and now he's found 2 copies of Dragonfire Potion. Terrence's way to get out of this is to eventually just get something substantial on board that continues to deliver that punch. The Blessing of Kings is going to put any minion into Shadow or Death range. If he tries to get a wide board position and build a bunch of synergy, Dragonfire Potion is going to wipe that out. CHAKKI's deck just has all the tools to handle these kinds of board states. If Terrence finds himself running into those positions, it's kind of like game 1 where he just blew CHAKKI out of the water. Except it takes a little longer.
When you get to that point, you pretty much know the game is not yours to win. The Gentle Megasaur is a way that Terrence can continue to apply pressure, maybe put up some Divine Shields, keep those minions alive even through one board clear. That's going to be a big defensive tool for Terrence, while at the same time also being offensive.
One of the things I'm looking at is that if Gentle Megasaur just provided +3 attack to the 3 Murlocs on board, that's just a lot of damage CHAKKI's going to take in the meantime as well. Plus the Gentle Megasaur is a 5/4 himself. So he does have some game coming into this next turn. You know, maybe he finds himself using Blessing of Kings if CHAKKI plays Priest to the Feast. But Gentle Megasaur is awfully tempting when you have this many Murlocs out already.
Especially since you know the Priest has so much removal that it's unlikely that you build a board quite this big going forward.
Yeah, I think Blessing of Kings is actually just going to end up being too powerful here. And some of that has to do with the fact that Terrence picked up another 1-cost Murloc as well. So next turn he's going to get 4 buffs from his Gentle Megasaur. And at this stage, he is probably looking for a Divine Shield to protect them.
Yeah. Death can come out. It's actually all that really CHAKKI has to do this turn with hero power on the back foot.
Yeah, the question here is, does he even want to use Shadow or Death? I mean, he's got Dragonfire Potion next turn. If he takes the 6 damage, you know, he gets to keep a Shadow or Death for later on. So that's the decision he has to weigh this turn, is should I pay 6 life, effectively, to keep a Shadow or Death? Now, this can punish him in some Gentle Megasaur situations. If this finds Divine Shield, CHAKKI is in a heap of trouble.
Absolutely is. Death Rattle for the 1/1s would also give Terrence a board after the board clear. +3 health isn't going to be enough for the majority of these Murlocs to live through Dragonfire Potion, however, so it does look like CHAKKI is going to get a really nice clear here.
Yeah, it does. The Vilefin Inquisitor does stick around through this position, but how much is that really going to provide? I mean, this is just destruction to the early game that Terrence tried to apply.
No, I think Divine Shield there would have maybe even won Terrence the game, but that was...
So the damage pushes here, but again, CHAKKI paying that life earlier to hang on to that Shadow or Death is now paying dividends.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it was smart of him. He knew that he could take 6 damage, likely clear the board with Dragonfire, and then save Death for a big threat later on, and, well, that time's now.
And you can rest assured that Don Honcho and Light's Justice are not in Terrence's decks.
What do you mean? 1 mana for 4 damage? It's so good.
It's not the worst card.
There's worse cards.
It's like an Azos First Mate, except you can't get patches from it, so it's nothing like it.
Budget First Mate.
Hey. CHAKKI just taking his notes and figuring out where everything goes. That helps CHAKKI so much too. This guy's such an excellent hand reader when it comes to figuring out what cards are in your hand and what you're likely to hold. In this matchup, it's not quite as relevant since Terrence is really pushing an all-in style of strategy in this matchup. But as time goes on, all that practice really ends up adding up and making a big impact. And his diligent note-taking is certainly going to help in that facet. But Terrence, big turn here with this Gentle Megasaur.
Takes +3 health yet again, and now these minions are out of range of Dragonfire, except for there's a Glimmerroot on board that can trade, and the Megasaur still dies.
The big one here is that Cold Light Seer is at 3-7 at the moment. So Bookworm, massive impact on this style of board. CHAKKI's at 15. He's feeling fairly safe on life total. I'm curious where he goes the rest of this turn, though, because he does have either the option for Radiant Elemental for heal or for the Shadow Vision Seer. I think the Radiant Elemental probably the worst of the three. Wow. I'm very surprised by that. I mean, this is almost a pure sacrifice, but that does pull attention away from the damage that Terrence can actually deliver here if he wants to kill that minion. And CHAKKI, he's looking at this position and going, well, how do I lose the game? There's just a lot of damage heading out. So get something on board, maybe it protects me.
It's a good point. He needed a piece of bait there. Radiant Elemental going to draw 5 damage, means that it doesn't go face. What are you really going to need the spell discounts for? If you set yourself up in a good, solid position with a high enough life total, you're going to have enough mana to play everything in your deck.
Yeah, it also helps him fight against Sunkeeper Terram turns, where now Terrence has to pay attention to a little bit more of the board because of that.
The power of the chalk.
It's a big turn for Terrence, though. It's unfortunately just checked right away. A second Dragonfire potion.
Yep. Going to be another full clear for CHAKKI. Terrence has no resources left other than that Hydrologist, and CHAKKI with
Primordial Drake, with Twilight Drake, with Shadow Visions, Potion of Madness.
Everything, pretty much.
Those are 3 strong cards.
I like them all. I like that one best.
That one's good. Yeah, and that's going to cause a deviation here from the Dragonfire Potion. Now he's simply free to take out Sunkeeper Terram and just get a 4-6 on board. So Terrence's board has been shredded apart. This Hydrologist is going to have to produce. And that's a sad little Grimscale chum at this stage.
Yes, it is. Really impressive, CHAKKI knowing how to partition out his resources. Not pulling the trigger on AoE too early, really waiting and being very patient. And I think that's the hallmark of a really incredible player.
Yeah, this Repentance actually could do some work here, though. I mean, Primordial Drake looking like the next minion that CHAKKI was ready to play, but he does have to pay some heed to that. So I imagine you were seeing an attack first, and then he's going to know that it's either eye for an eye or Repentance. So the draw of a Twilight Drake here, he's largely just making a sacrifice to that minion, but that's how it goes sometimes.
I mean, how worried is CHAKKI about the damage left on board for Terrence? He's seen 2 Blessing of Kings. He's seen both Megasaurs. He's seen the majority of the Murlocs.
Wow, look at this. He's actually going to forego his own hero power now. So now CHAKKI's left with Tidal Hand to fight off. There's no more healing now natural in his deck. And he just wants to get Primordial Drake on board and trying to start the punish.
I mean, what is Terrence going to use to kill CHAKKI? Do you even really need lesser heal? Or is a minion at full health more valuable?
Well, the other thing to consider is that, CHAKKI's now playing the sort of game that Terrence would be looking to play if this was a late stage there. He just makes a bunch of minions turn after turn and buys value from them. It's kind of an interesting spot. It often, I think, is going to function fairly similarly to the way that lesser heal was, just simply from the way the board is going to pan out. That's dead, though.
That's kind of rough.
That will not get any healing value.
Would have been useful if you'd had lesser heals still available.
He's just so good, though.
I know.
He's got 2 more minions to play. He's got Potion of Madness, which will effectively clear the board. Sees Noble Sacrifice. I think Terrence has done as much as he could, and at the end of the day, the tools that CHAKKI has come ready with in this priest deck have just torn apart the strategy.
I mean, that was why CHAKKI elected to counter Terrence's Paladin deck with his priest deck. He came with this in mind. and it's working out really well for him.
And CHAKKI's going to start the pressure. He says, you know what? I don't need to worry about that 1-1. Just going to start attacking. Why would I invest 4 damage now when I can just take 4 damage onto Terrence? Kodo's nice, but I think this is a little bit too...
A little too late.
Yeah. Not quite enough for getting the job done. And 5-6 looks fine to me.
It's a nice body. You don't get that
very,
spicy battle cry, but
it's a very arena
still
game
okay.
at this point.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Oh, I forgot about this, too. Those are 3 dragons that are on the board.
Yes, they are.
Whoops.
Full clear on Terrence, nothing for CHAKKI.
Yeah,
Who's the paladin now? Admirable.
Honestly, the title hand can make an impact here, too. Like if Terrence drew TERRENCEM, he gets to pop the Divine Shield right away. You know, in that spot, he would normally just lose the other 4-4. So
yeah.
series tied at 1 apiece. And now Terrence is on deck to find what he wants to play against CHAKKI's Priest.
It's a really strong Priest deck. A lot of competitors have elected to bring very similar styles of Priest, and Terrence will need to find his best counter. His Paladin's out of the way now. He had the Warrior, Shaman, and Rogue behind it. His Shaman is banned. So between the Rogue, which is a Miracle-style Rogue.
Looks like
Actually, no, it is a Quest Rogue.
Yeah.
He's got a Quest Rogue, and then his Warrior is a Pirate Warrior.
I know that Pirate Warrior can at times struggle with Priest. If Priest can get off to a strong lead and land one of those significant spots, that's where you're going to tear it apart. So Terrence is going to go with Quest Rogue. And this matchup, I would definitely say, is Quest Rogue favored. I mean, one of his big goals is finding a minion to bounce 4 times that produces some sort of value alongside of it. So think Novice Engineer, think Firefly, those sorts of minions. And for CHAKKI, it really is under quite a clock when it comes to this matchup. He has to find a way to not only apply pressure to Terrence, but then also have big disruption as the game moves on. If Terrence has to go all in on a big board state and CHAKKI has Dragonfire Potion, that's a way for him to win some of those games. The problem is going to be if CHAKKI has that pressure going, it's not significant enough, and then he also has to Dragonfire Potion his own minions to get caught in that. So for the most part, he's fighting a multi-dimensional attack here, where if he can't get pressure, then he has to rely on Dragonfire Potion.
And I mean, that's ultimately what it's going to come down to for the Priest, if they're able to take this match back. But when you get down to that point, you Dragonfire, Terrence just rebuilds board. Again, you have so much generation in this deck with Firefly, Igneous Elemental, all of the bounce effects, Bylefin Tidehunter. Does CHAKKI have the ability to run Terrence out of cards before pulling off that Dragonfire Potion? It's going to be tough.
The other thing to look at, too, is that Terrence's deck does have some failure rate built into it, where if he doesn't find any of the effects that can actually return minions, he can't actually complete the quest. And so right now his hand is dry of those. He kept Novice Engineer in his hand, and he drew, I think, one of the better cards for him, which is Igneous Elemental. But he has to be wary about Igneous Elemental. If it gets Potion of Madness and CHAKKI can kill it in that same turn, it's way harder to complete that quest if you lose that portion of it.
It's actually, in my experience, one of the best ways to deny the Quest Rogue from just ramping up so quickly that you have no way to deal with them. Potion of Madness is, I think, the silent Quest Rogue killer.
It's just going to be a matter of setup here for CHAKKI. It's, you know, Terrence doesn't have really any ways to damage his own minions. Sans backstab. You know, if he drew a backstab, he could backstab his own Igneous Elemental and kill it that way. But CHAKKI's going to start digging for cards right away. He knows that Dragonfire Potion's key. He knows Potion of Madness can be a big pickup right now. So he's got to find those cards.
Still missing them, but Terrence notably is still missing those bounce effects as well. Mimic Pod going to give him 2 copies of 1 card.
It's not a bad one to get.
It's a nice 5 damage charge when Terrence has completed his quest.
So one of the issues here is that Terrence doesn't really want to play any more minions. The fear of CHAKKI drawing so many extra cards, and then at the same time, I'm certain he's considering Potion of Madness and what that actually looks like if he plays a minion on board. Because then CHAKKI, if he has Potion of Madness, steals those Flame Elementals away. With Firefly in hand, he's either 1 Firefly or 1 bounce spell off of completing that quest.
He's close. But you also would have liked to have had access to those bounces early, maybe make some use out of Glacial Shard and deny CHAKKI the heals on the Northshire Clerics.
That's a tall order. Terrence, I imagine he's not playing a minion in this spot because of Potion of Madness. He's thinking about it, though.
He is. He's thinking about that Firefly.
Wow.
Oh, he's going to go with the deckhand.
So CHAKKI doesn't have Potion of Madness at the moment, but he does have Shadow Vision. So Terrence clearly very concerned with the amount of draw potential, and didn't realize that that South Sea Deckhand actually in charge. Just forgot the Rogue weapons up. So him playing the minion here is just totally fine for him.
You draw the patches out, which means that you're able to clear off the Cleric, deny CHAKKI some draw, and you're still not at risk of Potion of Madness, taking the Igneous Elemental, putting the Fireflies in CHAKKI's hand.
Yeah, very wise to keep his board as limited as possible to prevent that.
First Nether Spite hit high.
Yeah, the Operatives are, you know, typically good cards, but in this matchup...
What do you want to get from the Rogue deck? It's
Exactly.
all useless little minions.
Yeah, it's bounce effects, it's Fan of Knives, it's Mimic Pod, it's Vanish, Backstab, Preparation, and then 1-cost minions and 2-cost
Like,
minions. Just,
maybe at best, Mimic Pod, Fan, Novice.
look at this. CHAKKI's going to heal up the Igneous Elemental to prevent it from
CHAKKI's
dying.
so good. That's really smart. Oh, Terrence can backstab if he wants to.
This is a very unusual game.
There's a lot of mind games here. And this is what happens when you get two incredibly intelligent players up against each other with some weird interactions.
Yeah, definitely backstab the owning Igneous Elemental. This is a weird game.
It's so weird.
Healing your opponent's minions, backstabbing
your own minions. I mean, but now that Terrence has picked up the Youthful Brewmaster, that's going to be the 4th Flame Elemental that he needs to complete the quest.
Right, and that's where CHAKKI is going to start struggling here. He's yet to find a Dragonfire Potion. He hasn't had significant pressure out.
He does have Shadow Visions in hand, which could net him one of the Dragonfires. Dragon at Operative just fills up your hand.
Ten cards in hand as well. I mean, he doesn't really have an opportunity to play the Dragon at Operative here.
What else can you really do? I mean, you can
Look-
Madness the Engineer, run them both into the Brew.
I'm looking at the Radiant Elementals here. You know, it puts a similar amount of power on board. Again, there's not really much he can discover that makes a big impact, but it's hard to deny how powerful this card is. So I'm guessing he's on coin in Potion of Madness if that's the case. And
That's
Preparation,
pretty good.
that is one of the cards I think that can provide him more value.
It's honestly probably the best thing he could have picked up.
So now the question becomes, does he actually want a Preparation here? Or does he want to save coin? Because Primordial Drake is certainly a turn that can be really important to this matchup.
It's a good point. It sets up 2 5/5 minions on Terrence's board to have to run into the Drake.
Yeah. 5/6 is sort of the sweet spot against this deck at the same time, though. You know, I was talking about how once Terrence gets the quest online, he's just going to be in a huge position. But we are a little bit of time off of him seeing actually, play the quest.
Yeah.
CHAKKI has 1 turn to really respond to this board, and then afterwards, the 5/6 would require 2 actions, either the dagger or it would require 2 minions. But you know, the Glacial Shard could very easily
That was some good Volcano timing.
be
That's pretty good.
the difference in finding that position and not. So this is looking like the turn of truth right here. It's okay.
Truth or truth?
That's a totally okay draw if you're CHAKKI.
It was necessary. He needed it. The question is, do you? Nah, you do.
I think he has to. I mean, I don't really imagine a spot where CHAKKI can afford to let 20 damage connect.
These are all 5/5s next turn. The most you can do is cut down 1. Leaves you with 15. Yeah, Dragonfire, hit face.
My question is, do you prep the Dragonfire and add a Radiant Elemental to the board?
Gives you a 1-mana Shadow Visions on your next turn, which could give you another Dragonfire potion, which you could then play on the same turn.
Whew, it's a tough spot.
I think this is right.
Whew.
You
It
get
looks very
intense,
strange.
Nathan. You're
It looks really strange to Dragonfire
Yeah.
a bunch of 1/2s, but
they're 5/5s essentially. They're 5/5s in disguise
Now
as
the-
1/2s.
now the next question here for Terrence is, does he actually play the Crystal Core now, or does he ever try to develop his board and then start playing 5/5s? I think the fact that he's got Glacial Shard is giving him a lot of comfort in this spot, knowing
Yeah.
that he can start to press back onto the board, and if he just starts drawing charged minions, he can quite literally kill CHAKKI in 1 turn.
I mean, he's got 10 with Deckhand, Shadow Step. Glacial Shard can freeze the Operative. And Mimic Pod could give him 2 more minions.
Almost anything he gets from Mimic Pod at this point is a benefit. Sans Fan of Knives.
Yes. That's bad backstab. Backstab be pretty bad too.
Yeah.
But any minion, Shadow Step, any bounce effect.
The damage has begun.
Crystal Core train is rolling. And how is CHAKKI going to stop it?
The fact that it's only 2 minions too makes Dragonfire Potion just not that good. Sure, it's removing 10 power from board, but
It could remove 20.
It could.
It could remove 30.
Glacial Shard, not a bad find from the Draconid Operative either. So, you know, CHAKKI has managed to find some fairly significant things from his Draconid Operatives thus far.
Yeah, picking the best of the worst. So, all things considered, not bad. Do you forego a heal to be able to freeze? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, the pressure definitely means a lot. You know, CHAKKI does have 10 power on board. That's not effectively attacked into by Terrence in this spot. So if CHAKKI can just continue to chip away at damage, maybe Primordial Drake can stand in the way and give him the time he needs to actually get the damage that's relevant.
All right, there's second backstab, so Mimic Pod is going to net likely something useful. Or, no, well, actually.
It's not that bad, but the thing about it is that Terrence, he doesn't have a lot of charge damage, and the minions he has are kind of weak.
I think CHAKKI's hand is pretty full. So
Oh,
if
that's a
Terrence
big
were to
one.
vanish, essentially he'd be destroying some of these minions.
Yeah, and you're looking at that coming, you know, potentially next turn. So that card is definitely, it's in here for these styles of matchups where your opponent is operating into a big curve, and your goal is to simply return all your cheap minions to their hand, return all their expensive ones to their hand, and then you redeploy and have a giant board versus nothing. It's a very strong card in the longer games, but I can tell you, he really wanted minions.
I wonder if when CHAKKI sees Terrence not play additional minions here, he'll maybe have a read on what that Mimic Potted card was.
It's going to be really tough because I think a large portion of that too could just be that Terrence simply wanted to prevent Dragonfire Potion from being a big deal.
True.
And so it especially sells that as the case if Terrence just doesn't replay this Southsea deckhand. But I'm not sure he has an option other than Dragonfire Potion at this point. Maybe now.
Yeah, I think now you definitely do. And there's actually, there's a Deathwing in CHAKKI's hand. So if CHAKKI's able to stabilize, put Terrence down into, you know, below 12 Deathwing susceptibility range.
Oh, that's a big one. No dice.
Let's try again. There it is.
Oh, he's got the prep. That's a huge pickup for CHAKKI.
Putting
Oh
Terrence
my
at
gosh.
8 health. This is quite a reversal.
Well, Terrence does have a lot of damage following up. So he's got Southsea deckhand for 5. The dagger's going to provide 1. Vanish is effectively 5 more damage in this spot, thanks to the Southsea deckhand. So Terrence does have a route to victory here, which is simply preventing CHAKKI from actually delivering that damage and then just following up with more vanishes to clear the way and continuing to clock him with that Southsea deckhand.
You can Fan of Knives for cycle if you don't want to replay your deckhand. Because you're likely going to need to vanish again next turn.
But here's the thing. CHAKKI will know that that vanish is then Mimic Potted.
He will.
He has been tracking where these cards came from in hand.
Second fan. Terrence needs Stone Tusk Boar. Technically second, but also technically third Southsea because we saw one of them get added to hand from the first Mimic Pod. Thing is, all of these cards create additional cards in hand. There's no way to just dump some cards here.
I don't think he's too much worried about the burn. He's worried just about the assault that Terrence has going. Where does CHAKKI actually find those points of damage? You know, maybe Terrence doesn't doesn't vanish just this minion by itself. I mean, the taunt in the way means that he won't get the value from the South Sea deck in attack and be able to attack with vanish. So
Yeah.
this was just outright the best one to play.
Especially with the shard picked up. Maybe you just feel like you can freeze the Drake.
Yeah, backstab Wise first. He's going to have to go through it at some point. That's a big pickup, though. Anytime Terrence can just get extra minions, it's a big deal. But we are approaching the Deathwing turn. Like, if CHAKKI just slams Deathwing, does he even need the rest of these cards in hand? Like, Terrence doesn't have a way to actually kill Deathwing in his deck outside of just raw minion.
It would have to be that CHAKKI plays Deathwing and Terrence has enough damage in hand to kill past that.
Right, and if you just simply vanish a Deathwing, it's still coming down again the next turn.
Yeah,
so
it's not effective.
If he at all is considering that as his big play, then Terrence quite literally has to find charge damage to kill CHAKKI. But any charge minion would work. An additional Shadow Step effect would work.
Still both Bruise and Ferryman in deck. We did see one bounce effect as well as a Shadow Step so far.
Yeah, and in CHAKKI's position, because he's got that Shadow Word Death, he's not purely focused on slamming that Deathwing right now. It's no value. He has plenty of other cards to play. He can threaten Terrence multiple numbers of ways. It is a card that started in your opponent's deck.
CHAKKI's got 3 Draconiid operatives in hand.
He does have 3 Draconiid operatives in hand. And Vanish is happening, so.
Yeah, it is.
He's not going to play it, but.
Okay, that's kind of hilarious. But, like, play it. Just play it. Humor me, CHAKKI.
You can't let him know. You can't
Oh,
give away
come on. Man.
Brew. That's a Vanish. That's a South Sea.
That's a brew. That's 11.
So back to hand goes the South Sea.
Oh, my goodness.
He's just a couple points off.
Deathwing comes down.
Well, does it come down?
If Deathwing comes down.
I think it does come down. I don't know.
It puts Terrence in check while clearing all the board.
Uh-oh. So now, if the Deathwing comes down, he's got Bilefin Tidehunter to protect himself.
Yeah. That's a big deal. But does CHAKKI have anything else he can do? Drake can be played. You can heal up to 4, and you just hope that Terrence has to send both these minions into the Drake and that he doesn't have a bounce effect or a charge minion.
It's very clear that Terrence is out of charge damage. If he wasn't out of charge damage,
he would have just won.
He would have killed CHAKKI already. So there's 2 different ways to approach this. Number 1 is play the Drake, make the sacrifice to the board, hope that you can land a higher value Deathwing. Or number 2 is Deathwing and put Terrence to the test right now.
The more time you're giving Terrence, the more time he has to draw those final blows.
He's going to go with Deathwing, 9 cards discarded. And Terrence has a taunt left. He can protect himself against this. More gas. CHAKKI is on the brink of death. Preparation's no help.
That's a whiff.
So now, the next draw, if it's Shadow or Death, if it's Dragonfire Potion, that's how CHAKKI wins the game. Otherwise, Terrence is taking a 2-1 lead.
It all comes down to this. What is it going to be?
No dice.
Useless. Close, but ultimately no cigar. Terrence is going to go up to a 2-1 lead in this series.
1 game away from taking out the competitor who stopped him from winning this tournament last year.
Man, there is so much on the line here for these guys. Terrence coming in as the underdog. CHAKKI, obviously the favorite. He's had a storied career in Hearthstone, and Terrence has, well, he's fallen at the hands of CHAKKI in the past. Will it happen again, or can he take this series?
Dare I say CHAKKI has probably the second most second-place finishes of anyone in the world. So
that's true. That's absolutely
this
true.
being a rematch of last year, it's just such a cool thing to see. And the Quest Rogue, you could start to see how Terrence's lineup is built. It's take advantage of game 1, where so many people have been leading with Murloc Paladin just because it's strong against the field, and he has a tech card for the mirror. Then when they counter that list with something that's meant to operate on a slower level, that's when he breaks up Quest Rogue and tries to counter that back. Then his final deck he's operating with is meant to just be a strong anchor against what counters Quest Rogue.
Well, this is what counters Quest Rogue.
Yes. Warrior has been an incredibly strong force where the Pirates are concerned. And while it did lose some power in the journey to Ngoro, it didn't really lose all that much. It's still got all of its main facets. The goal of this deck is very unsubtle. You get minions on board, you start attacking, that's what you do. But one of the nightmare cards you can draw is Patches. CHAKKI has an opening hand. But that being said, this matchup is really largely about the fact that Terrence doesn't have significant ways to check the pressure that CHAKKI throws with these kinds of minions.
Well, you say he doesn't have significant ways. Glacial Shard is pretty significant in the grand scheme of things. No, there's no Galaka crawlers in Terrence's build, but Glacial Shard is going to be able to shut down a significant amount of damage. And if Terrence decides to go with the Glacial Shard as his bounce and replay 4 times effect, CHAKKI's going to have a hard time getting damage through.
You're right. That is typically the one card that they want to use to try to buy that extra time. If you're just freezing a reasonable sized minion, say it's 3 power.
Yeah.
It's 2 extra life you get. And you know, over the course of 2 or 3 freezes, that's the difference between winning and losing the game, because the damage can pile on very fast. But here, I really like what Terrence has done. This is honestly quite a brilliant play. Oftentimes you play this Quest Rogue deck, you just play the quest on turn 1 and start going. In this matchup, he has coined out his dagger to start punching away at these minions. He knows that if he takes care of all of them, that Bloodsail Cultist isn't going to land big value, that South Sea Captain goes down a lot in value, those sorts of things. He has some life to toy with, but it's early on that he has it. And now that he's drawn another Glacial Shard, this dagger up is now buying him 2 cards, and he's got ways to start protecting himself.
That is such a key draw for Terrence here. Caverns Below comes down. You could have actually prepped the Caverns if you wanted to play both shards this turn.
Yeah, I think preparation of the Caverns would be
a little bit weird. You're saving that for you're saving that for Crystal Core.
Yes, he needs to get that online as quickly as possible, or even in the face of him completing the quest, he sometimes just doesn't have time to play it and deal the damage necessary to raise CHAKKI in that spot. But now there's no minion left. CHAKKI's purely on a damage race. And without repetitive damage, this deck can struggle to get the job done at times.
And it's important to note that Terrence does have Bilefin Tidehunter in deck, meaning that there is a taunt minion that CHAKKI may have to go through. Normally the Rogue doesn't have taunt, doesn't have heal. This is the one exception.
Yeah, now that being said, if CHAKKI manages to connect with all of the cards that he has just one time, it means he's 6 damage off of killing Terrence. So there is a lot of draws in this deck that are dedicated purely to dealing damage. But Shard turn after turn, it's going to stop weapon attacks. So, you know, Arcanite Reaper looking like a worse draw now. CHAKKI can't really afford to just override his Fiery War Axe most of the time. Patches now threatened on board, thanks to the Youthful Brewmaster. And he knows there's another Glacial Shard there. So he's got to find ways to deal damage. At this point, he is at the mercy of his deck.
CHAKKI drops the Infiltrator. Fan of Knives plus Glacial Shard is going to be devastating.
Oh, he's going to drop the Worgen Infiltrator. He has no option. Now, if everything connected one time, he would be 3 damage off lethal. Patch is getting in that second one. So again, he's very close, but he needs time. And that's what the Glacial Shard is preventing. Now another bounce effect.
Man, oh man.
That is 4 more turns that CHAKKI's not going to be able to attack. I think Terrence is pulling ahead of this game.
This is supposed to be the deck that you bring to kill Quest Rogues. It is the hard counter.
Well, Greenskin is at least something. This does provide now a different direction of attack, and it can slow the amount of damage that Terrence is outputting, but another bounce effect.
This is so strong, Admirable. Terrence just continuously shutting down CHAKKI's sources of damage. Like you said, if everything had connected, CHAKKI would have been 3 damage off lethal, but that is a big if. And Terrence is fighting his way into this game. Crystal Core online. You can prep it this turn.
And that's a lot of damage.
I am...
Terrence found both of his critical elements with the Glacial Shards. He found ways to bounce them. He found the preparation to get the Crystal Core online. CHAKKI's going to give it up, and Terrence is going to take down the man who stopped him last year from winning this tournament and advance to the top 8.
The underdog has given himself the rematch, and he's gotten his revenge over CHAKKI. Really unfortunate for CHAKKI that he wasn't able to make the repeat performance that he did last year, but now maybe it's Terrence's chance. Maybe Terrence is going to go all the way and win this entire tournament.
Well, I can tell you who I'm rooting for at this point. It's Terrence. Yeah. Whoa, when did you get here?
That was a test to see if I was muted, but I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, CHAKKI falls to Terrence, as you guys mentioned, the repeat. And Terrence, that quest row, we've seen it beat Pirate Warrior quite a bit throughout the tournament. And, you know, it seems to be the deck that a lot of players were like, well, people are going to come in and try and counter it, so I'm not going to bring it because I feel like I won't be able to beat those aggro decks.
Yeah.
But CHAKKI has a few aggro decks in this lineup, but wasn't able to get the job done.
Yeah, well, the Glacial Shard is really the key element there. If that's the one that you can repetitively bounce in, you can actually find your opponent with no minions in play. That is a really big benefit.
Yeah.
Now, CHAKKI did drop patches in that game.
2 patches.
He did not have a 3-drop in that game.
Yeah.
Those are 2 very big deals to look at when you're looking at this matchup. You know, when the fortunate things pan out, those Glacial Shards could very easily enable you to win the game. But, you know, everything has to work out for you. So, in this one, we could have very easily seen a game number 5, but you know, everything lined up for Terrence at this point, and that's part of what it takes to win card tournaments. You got to play well. You got to get a little lucky.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've said that obviously